Number 9. Judge John McBain. In 2014, Camilla Gannett was sentenced to life in the Michigan State prison system for violently stabbing and bludgeoning her boyfriend, Marcel Hill, to death. Throughout her trial, Gannett had argued that she acted in self-defense, but the court was clearly unconvinced. Judge John McBain described the crime as one of the worst cold-blooded murders he'd ever seen. As Hill's aunt addressed the court in a victim impact statement, Gannett rolled her eyes and laughed. She then interrupted the statement by asking, "Is that it?" At that point, Judge McBain stepped in and let Gannett know that she had taken her behavior too far. He ordered the convicted murderer to shut her mouth or he would have it covered with duct tape. McBain went on to say that he hopes Gannett dies in prison and that if Michigan were a death penalty state, she'd be getting the electric chair. Number 8. Judge Randy Rich. 28-year-old pizza delivery man Shane Varnador was shot dead on the job in Gwinnett County, Georgia in 2016. One of the suspects, Jermaine Young, was sentenced to life without parole. The killing was so heinous that Young's teenage accomplice, Reginald Lofton, was tried as an adult. But because of his age, a life sentence without parole would constitute cruel and unusual punishment under Georgia law. Lofton was sentenced to the maximum of life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. He'll be around 45 years old when his first parole hearing comes up, which means that he could enjoy decades of freedom after committing a crime that puts most people behind bars for the rest of their lives, or at least until a very old age. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Randy Rich minced no words when it came to expressing his true feelings about the outcome of the case. Addressing Lofton directly, he said, "I wish I could give you more time than I can, because I think you're a cold-blooded killer. I hope you never get out of jail." Judge Rich remained calm. He didn't even raise his voice. But there was an unmistakable sincerity in his composed demeanor, and he was clearly frustrated with the limits put in place by the law, which prevented him from handing down a sentence that, in his opinion, would truly bring justice to the case. Number 7. Judge Bryant Durham. In 2016, Denver Fenton Allen was accused of killing his inmate at the Floyd County Jail in Georgia. During a routine pre-trial hearing that made national news, Allen repeatedly made crude remarks towards Judge Bryant Durham, who eventually got fed up and found the defendant in contempt of court. Allen responded by saying, "I don't care," sparking a bizarre back and forth of heated comments between the two. Durham replied, "I know you don't care." He sentenced Allen to 20 days for contempt and warned that if the defendant continued making obscene remarks, he'd add more time to the charge. Allen said, "F you," and the sentence was bumped up to 40 days. He said it again, and the judge increased the sentence to 60 days. The back and forth continued to the point where Judge Durham sentenced Allen to 10 years for contempt. Durham remarked that it was going to be an interesting trial, and that Allen was the rudest person he had ever met. Allen continued to make perverse and threatening statements, to which Durham replied that the defendant looked like a queer. When Allen accused the judge of calling him a homophobic slur in the courtroom, Durham said, "I didn't call you one, I said you looked like one." He went on to say that Allen had a constitutional right to be a dumbass. Tensions brewed to the point where Allen threatened, in a very graphic manner, to kill Durham's children. After asking a reporter if they were recording the exchange, Durham replied that he didn't have any kids, adding that Allen would find out how nasty I really am. The judge was widely criticized for lashing out and for his derogatory use of the word queer, and there were even calls for his removal from the bench. Durham publicly apologized and recused himself from the case, but remained on the bench for another 3 years. Number 6. Judge Aubrey Rhymes. While facing a domestic violence charge in a Mississippi courtroom in 2021, 27-year-old Sidney Newsom broke free from the bailiff and threw a violent tantrum. Video of the outburst showed Judge Aubrey Rhymes repeatedly ordering Newsom to leave the courtroom before a stack of papers flew through the air and smacked him in the face. 2 clerical court workers fled as the bailiff wrestled Newsom to the ground just feet away from their desks. The handcuffed defendant once again overpowered the bailiff, then proceeded to pick up a phone and hurl it in the judge's direction, knocking over a computer screen. At that point, Judge Rhymes had seen enough. He got out of his chair and approached Newsom as objects kept flying at his head, and pinned the out-of-control suspect to a table. Rhymes held Newsom down until 4 more officers arrived and hauled the combative defendant and his brother out of the courtroom. He then returned to his seat and resumed business as usual, while his support staff cleaned up the mess that Newsom had made. Number 5. Judge MERRILEE EHRLICH. After being rolled into a video court hearing in a wheelchair in 2018, Sandra Twiggs mentioned some of her medical ailments to Broward County, Florida Judge MERRILEE EHRLICH. The frail 59-year-old suffered from asthma and COPD and explained that her conditions require breathing treatments. Twiggs remained calm as EHRLICH snapped at her, saying, "I'm not here to talk about your breathing treatments." EHRLICH continued to interrupt Twiggs when she tried to talk, with repeated orders to just listen. Twiggs couldn't get a word in edgewise, but the judge at least agreed to free her without bond on a domestic violence charge. As she explained that Twiggs would have to check in with a court office following her release, EHRLICH took the opportunity to slip in one final snide remark, stating, "You have to arrange for someone to carry you if you cannot get there yourself." Twiggs was so traumatized by how EHRLICH treated her that she had a panic attack every time she tried to tell her family about it. Her goddaughter, Carolyn Porter, told CBS that Twiggs was never the same in the short time she had with her loved ones following her release. She died just days after being freed. EHRLICH, who was scheduled to retire a few months later, promptly stepped down from the bench, and Broward Chief Administrative Judge Jack Tutor reassured the public that she wouldn't be back. Tutor condemned the disgraced judge's behavior and vowed to contact Twiggs' family to apologize for how Sandra was treated. Number 4. Judge Philip Kirk. Wisconsin defense attorney Michael D. Peterson became a defendant in 2015 when he was accused of lying to a client about a non-existent plea deal. And it wasn't just a one-time thing, according to Outagamie County Assistant District Attorney Andrew Meyer, who said he never promised some of the plea deals Peterson offered to defendants on his behalf. Peterson was convicted of contempt and was sentenced to a year of probation. As part of his punishment, Judge Philip Kirk required the disgraced attorney to specifically tell all his clients over the next year that he was a crook, a cheat, a thief, and a liar. The damaging disclosure was an unusual punishment since most judges avoid affecting a defendant's ability to work when possible. But Judge Kirk told Peterson that he didn't care if business went bad for him, stating, "I want you to have as much business as a pimp in a nursing home." He continued laying into Peterson in what the Post-Crescent described as an R-rated diatribe, most of which was too inappropriate to print in the paper. It wasn't the first time Judge Kirk made the news for lashing out at a defendant. In 2011, he came under fire for some controversial comments he made during the sentencing of Delton Gorges, a school bus driver who was convicted of assault. Kirk openly doubted Gorges' claim that he was heterosexual, stating that if the defendant had suddenly become interested in men when it came to committing his crimes, that I must have looked ravishing in my prom dress this year. He also made a puzzling comment comparing the defendant to the smell of a jockstrap. Critics were quick to point out that Kirk's commentary had the effect of linking homosexuality with criminal activity, even if that wasn't what he meant to do. Number 3. Judge James D. CAIN. Hurricane Laura was one of the strongest recorded hurricanes to ever make landfall in Louisiana. The Category 4 storm made landfall in August of 2020 and devastated the southwestern portion of the state. As expected, Louisiana courts received an influx of lawsuits from victims looking to sue their insurance companies for damage settlements. And as a longtime federal judge in the region, the Honorable James D. CAIN is used to handling hurricane-related claims. He said that it's normal for a law firm to file anywhere from 200 to 300 cases after a storm, which is why he suspected something was off when one Houston-based firm filed over 1,400 cases over a 2-month period. During a review of the cases filed by McClenny, Mosley and Associates, the court found duplicate filings, cases that weren't even in the hurricane's path, and claims that had already been settled by other law firms. At a special hearing he called to address these issues, CAIN asked the firm's representatives how they managed to consult so many people in such a short amount of time. One of the firm's partners, Zach Mosley, told the judge that the company utilized advanced AI technology to expedite its research process, and as a result, they helped a lot of people who would have otherwise missed the filing deadline and lost everything. Mosley maintained that the firm was doing its due diligence in each case, and clients testified that the lawyers were sufficiently keeping in contact. Judge CAIN was unconvinced. He accused the firm of preying on hurricane victims and failing to properly research the claims it filed. In a no-nonsense tone, he said, "You've wasted judicial resources having to deal with your mess. You're not going to clog up my system." He went on to say, "Tell your partners in Houston to stay the frick out of my court with this kind of trash." CAIN ordered a thorough review of each case and a $200 fine for each claim that was found to be ineligible to proceed in court. He concluded the hearing by warning the firm that he never wanted to see something like this happen again. Number 2. Judge Nicholas GARAUFIS. In 2016, Facebook landed in U.S. federal court as the defendant in 2 major lawsuits representing 20,000 plaintiffs who accused the social media giant of facilitating terrorism. Thomas Alden Burchard II, a rookie lawyer for the firm defending Facebook, showed up for the scheduled initial conference about the cases at the U.S. District Court in Brooklyn, New York, and the judge wasn't happy. The Honorable Nicholas GARAUFIS was appalled that the Manhattan-based firm, Kirkland & Ellis, would send anyone but a top partner to handle such major cases. He took his frustrations out on Burchard, who was admitted to the bar just 2 years earlier and had only been working for the firm for a year. Judge GARAUFIS accused Kirkland & Ellis of being outrageous, irresponsible, and insulting, and said that Facebook had a social responsibility to resolve the complaints brought forward in the suits. Burchard replied that a lawsuit was not the proper vehicle for fixing the issue and was brushed off by the judge, who said, "I've been a lawyer for 41 years and a judge for 16, and I'm not having this discussion with you." When Burchard tried to explain that the lead counsel on the matter was addressing an out-of-state emergency regarding another case, GARAUFIS fired back, "Maybe Kirkland & Ellis can scrounge up a partner who isn't busy in Texas to come see a lowly judge in the Eastern District of New York." With that, he ended the conference and rescheduled it for a later date. Number 1. Judge Elizabeth Scherer. On Valentine's Day 2018, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz opened fire on students and staff at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. He killed 17 people and injured 17 others. After dragging its heels through the court system for more than 4 years, his criminal case concluded with a guilty verdict. As the shooter's final hearing approached, Broward Public Defender Gordon Weeks asked Judge Elizabeth Scherer to stop the victim's surviving family members from addressing the defense team in their impact statements. By then, the parents of several victims had openly criticized Chief Assistant Public Defender Melissa McNeil and had brought up her children in their statements. Naturally, prosecutors argued that the victims had the legal right to express themselves, and Scherer agreed. Weeks persistently tried to convince the judge that the statements toward the defense team were inciting violence, but Scherer remained unconvinced. She also pointed out that Public Defender McNeil opened the door to commentary about her children by bringing them up in her defense arguments. Scherer told Weeks to sit down, but he told her not to dismiss him. She continued telling him to sit down. Weeks asked for a recess, but the judge denied it, and he walked away. Putting her foot down for the last time, Scherer told Weeks that he was inappropriate and out of line, and once again ordered him to go sit down, adding that Cruz's sentencing would proceed as planned. Thanks for watching. Would you rather face a verbally abusive judge who's known for lashing out in court but has a good track record for making fair rulings, or an easygoing judge who seems to mean well but has a history of making highly questionable decisions? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.